Welcome back. Well, viewers, on the Breakfast Club, we've brought to you in the past several stories of cyber fraud and digital arrests. Each of the cases dominating headlines come with a certain shock and disbelief about the several holes punctured by fraudsters in duping people of thousands of lakhs of rupees by exploiting their vulnerabilities. In the latest, in fact, and to everyone's surprise, at the receiving end of a digital fraud to the tune of 22.92 crore rupees was a retired banker from Delhi. 70-year-old Naresh Malhotra was kept under virtual custody for 45 days, threatened with false terror charges, forced to liquidate his assets too. He lost this huge amount to cyber fraudsters posing as police, CBI and ED officials. And this is just one part of the story we're going to be focusing on this morning. The internet is posing as humans' biggest enemy in ways more than one. And cyber fraud is not just linked to scamsters impersonating agency officials. It's also being seen in the manipulative design techniques. And that's the second part of the story we're focusing on. Design techniques online that are used to deceive and exploit victims. And if you're wondering what that means, we're referring to dark patterns. For those unaware, dark patterns is a deceptive design used in websites and applications to trick users into doing things they did not intend on doing. Basically, instead of making an informed decision, a user might be manipulated into sharing personal data, purchasing necessary items, or even struggling to cancel a subscription. And worse, unwillingly share personal data or authorize financial transactions. Now, a recent study LocalCircles published a survey with inputs from over 250,000 consumers located across 392 districts in the country and across 290 platforms online. LocalCircles found that despite government efforts, most online platforms in India refrain from resolving their dark patterns. Secondly, digital lending, travel, airlines, e-commerce, online banking and payment taxi, OTT platforms, all of this have among highest number of dark patterns. And then the LocalCircles also told us that this data was validated by them through the AI-based dark pattern detection engine. That's the kind of science that's gone into this. So why is that despite the Consumer Protection Act 2019 attracting penalties including fines up to 20 lakh rupees, imprisonment up to 6 months, there's been little let up in the use of dark patterns by applications and online platforms? Let's go across to the founder of LocalCircles, Sachin Taparia, who joins us this morning on the Breakfast Club to decode the entire story, to tell us where the trouble's lie. Good morning, Sachin. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning.
Okay, Sachin, now we've got this very serious conversation ahead of us, but let's try and make it as relatable for everyone who's tuned into the Breakfast Club this morning, wondering to begin with what dark patterns really is. What is it? Tell us as simply as you can.
So essentially, Christine, the dark patterns essentially are basically manipulative tactics that a user of any digital app is led to, where they are basically led to perform an action that they did not intend to perform, right? So if you went on a e-commerce app or a quick commerce app and you added 2 items to your cart, if a third one was added without your knowledge and you went and it was also designed in a way that you did not even see the cart before checking out, right? And you ended up paying for a third item that you did not intend to buy. This is a classic dark pattern. Similarly, and this dark pattern is called basket sneaking, that something was added into your basket without your knowledge, right? A lot of us use taxi apps these days. So when you open the taxi app, you will see that the nearest cab is 2 minutes away, right? But when you go to the next step, right, and you click on it saying that, look, I'm looking for this particular route or this particular taxi, it says your cab is 16 minutes away, right? So this is again another dark pattern tactic called bait and switch, where a bait is given to you for you to come in, right, and then later they switch to something else. Very, very common again when you're shopping online, you'll see a price, all of us have gone through this. You see an iPhone listed for 50,000. When you go inside the app, it's 68,000, right? So again, bait and switch. Forced action, you talked about, digital arrest and cyber crimes and cyber fraud, right? Forced action is essentially taking your data without your consent. Then there is something called as privacy zookering, which is again related to your data, and many times manipulating prices based on your user behavior. So you go and you search for an airline ticket, right? And if the app senses that you are really in a rush to basically book this particular airline ticket, after a period of time, the price for that ticket will be increased on that same, web session or the app session. While if you open another phone or open a browser on the desktop, you'll see that the fare is still much lower, basically, right? So it's essentially sensing your urgency and saying, look, this individual is going to book the ticket, so let me raise the prices from 5,000, Delhi, Mumbai to 7,000, just to get them to act, basically, right? So these are all various dark patterns that a lot of users face in their daily lives. We've been studying the subject for close to 2.5 years now. We've escalated it to the government. They formed the guidelines in 2023, but the implementation is extremely poor, and that's what this latest study of ours has validated, both from a user feedback perspective as well as when a user says that, look, I faced this. Then when we go and we validate this information using our technology and engines, AI based, we found that some of those, or most of those actually, those dark patterns or deceptive tactics were actually true, and in fact on these platforms. And we have studied about 290 platforms in the country. So you name the sector and we have got data on it that we have put together essentially. So what really needs to happen here is a broad-based understanding by the government saying, look, it's not just online shopping or taxis, but there are anything that is an app that a user is interacting with, buying products or services from. There are dark patterns there, and let's address them.
Sachin, now you're telling us that this is happening across applications. It's not limited to e-commerce. For instance, it's happening on your taxi app that you're using too. A lot of users are catching up. A lot of us are smart, so we're being able to figure out that, if you're booking airlines, for instance, on one gadget, but right before booking, you're supposed to go to the other because the prices may vary. So there's a sense of that understanding of what may be going wrong, but a lot of us don't know what to do about it. So typically, you said the government is putting in effort and cracking down on these kind of dark patterns, but what more can be done? Why is it that everyone's getting away with this? These practices are very much in place still. And where does the law finally crack down on these violators, if they're called violators, that is?
I think so. So the government has done a bit of crackdown and some industry meetings, but I think they need to go back to the drawing board and understand that this, this is there on every single type of app. Where, even some of the government apps or public sector enterprises like the IRCTC, which is your train booking, right, where it may not be intended to add an additional charge or to, put something in your basket. But there are other dark patterns which basically, are called interface interference, where you are trying to do something, but then something else was presented at the wrong time that took you away from the base transaction that you're trying to do into, buying an insurance or buying, something else basically, right? So even the IRCTC app still has dark patterns. So I think it is really going back to the drawing board, understanding what all sectors are impacted by dark patterns, right? Getting a meeting of all the stakeholders and then giving them a very clear deadline of, by when they are supposed to be fixing these, and then, putting a penalty in cases where, and enforcing that penalty, right? It's been in the law for 2 years now, but enforcing that penalty on every operator, be it government, be it private, whatever it is, and working on that penalty. So ensuring that, this doesn't happen again with that same platform.
And since we began this story by talking about digital fraud, Sachin, tell us a little bit about how people's money is going for a toss through some of these dark patterns. And by that I mean when they're really not intending on paying as much. For instance, we spoke of one example, which is not being able to cancel your subscription. So tell us about instances such as these that everyone who's watching this episode must watch out for and pick on before they end up making that payment.
Very, very common. In fact, this is a dark pattern called subscription trap, where essentially you end up buying a subscription, right? There is a cricket match going on, right? And many of us experienced this in the recent few weeks, basically. Some yesterday, there's a cricket match going on. You go online, you want to watch that match, right? You take a subscription. It is very easy to get that subscription by clicking a few buttons, but it's extremely hard to cancel that subscription. And therefore, what ends up happening is somebody wanted to use something one time, they end up going and subscribing to it. Now when they want to cancel it, they cannot cancel it, and in many cases they get monthly billing almost for year for a year, in many cases 2 to 3 years, right, where they are regularly being billed and there is no easy way of canceling that charge. So this is one of the most common complaints, and something that gets repeated over time again and again, basically with people, and where they lose the most amount of money when it comes to transactional based dark patterns. We see it all the time.
Sachin, when I read this from one of your key findings, fewer than 3% Indian platforms are dark pattern free. That figure in itself is so worrying. Imagine we have 97% of work left to do still. Thank you, Sachin, for taking us through that all-important data, for bringing a little more awareness to our viewers who are watching The Breakfast Club this morning. Thank you. We'll connect with you soon. Take this story forward in different ways, perhaps.